Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ. On this episode, we have Jethro Bovington of Top Gear. Now, Jethro is one of the nicest guys in the business, two, one of the most experienced guys in the business, and three, he has had one hell of a career that's still kicking ass and taking names. From EVO Magazine to head-to-head with Johnny Lieberman on Motor Trend to now as the host of Top Gear America, he has driven some of the coolest and best cars I have ever seen. However, before we jump in with Jethro, we pick a car from our Hemmings Classifieds, of which we have 25 to 30,000 online, as well as our Hemmings auction. So, for Jethro, what did I find? Now, I know he likes fast stuff. I know he likes cool stuff. I know he likes to go out and giggle and drive sideways and everything. So what I picked was a little maybe on the old school side, but I dig it. I've always wanted to drive one. I never had the opportunity, probably never will, but I bet you he has. So I found a 1982 Ferrari 512 BBI. This is a 12-cylinder mid-engine monster from the early 80s, carbureted, kind of, clamshell rear end, full of ridiculousness that was made by Ferrari back then when they were kind of still in the habit of making stuff that was visceral and insane and could possibly catch on fire. So take a look at that at the link below, and we'll be back in a few seconds with Jethro Bovington from Top Gear. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ with today's guest, Jethro Bovington from Top Gear America, from EVO Magazine, from Motor Trend, from Heads. I'm like, the man has literally done everything when it comes to four wheels.
And from the sunny UK. It's lovely and warm.
And that's right. How is the weather over there? Since you're what, nine hours ahead? Is that right?
It's it's 4:30 in the afternoon here. It's gorgeous. It's actually, we've had I've been back 3 or 4 weeks. It rained for like the first 2 or 3, and then this last week or so it's been gorgeous. So yeah, it's almost like I'm back in California, but it's just a bit greener.
Okay, well that's totally fine considering everybody. I mean, the stereotype of the UK is just constant rain. So the fact that you're saying it's a sunny day is pretty damn good.
Stunning. It's lovely. I'm very happy. It's pretty miserable to come home and it be raining for 2 or 3 weeks. But once the sun picks up, I can, and I've done a few jobs with back with EVO and stuff. So I feel like I'm back in my normal universe.
Gotcha. Well, so your universe, let's talk about that. So how did you get started in this industry with cars? Because I know you've been doing this for 20 years, 18 years, maybe more.
Yeah, I totally, by like all these things, not by accident, but I was extremely lucky. I left university effectively, college, and after my degree, and then a few months later I got a job at EVO. So that's pretty much how it played out. So I'd written to them. I didn't know them or anything. I'd written to them, I think, for work experience when I was at university, or called them or emailed them, can't remember. And I didn't know this at the time, but their organization is like legendarily terrible, like back in the So I heard nothing from them. And then I thought, well, I'll give it one more go, as I was approaching right at the end of the degree and stuff. So I just think I wrote to them and was like, listen, I need a job now. I don't want work experience, but I'll do anything. You don't have to pay me much money, and I'll just come along and soak it all up and clean cars and make coffee. And so that's how it happened, really. And it was a long process. Luckily I went in and really got on with the guys. And then it was just, these things took forever. But I think I left university like May, it would have been May time, and then I joined EVO the following March. So it took a little while for it to all happen, but it was great because it was back when the mag was sort of independent. Mm-hmm. It was independent actually when I joined, and they were bought soon after, but it stayed in a very family feeling sort of business for quite a while, and they were precious about the brand and the mag, and they loved it, which they had every right to, because they'd created something that was pretty actually amazing,
pretty fantastic.
It was fantastic, and back in those days it was just the best thing. So they sort of gave me a proper apprenticeship where it's pretty difficult to get that now, I think. But I was was put in, I drove cars, they booked me a lot of cars in, but didn't actually expect me to write anything except to them internally so they could see what I was thinking. They sent me on driving courses.
Really?
And yeah, and I just learned, because it's rare these days, isn't it? But because they weren't a big corporate machine and they built this loyalty amongst their readers, and they knew how resistant their little niche audience would be to someone coming in, they had to have confidence in me, in what I was saying and what I was doing. So they wanted me to write properly, which I guess wasn't such a big deal. It took me a while to probably get the style that became mine, I guess.
Yeah.
But I was, I'd done English and history at university, so I was pretty okay with that stuff. But the driving, although I, like everyone, as a teenager and an early 20, like I'd driven too fast and inappropriately for plenty of time before.
Right.
But I didn't have any I didn't kart when I was a kid or race or anything like that. So they wanted me to be up to speed. So I just sat there and soaked it all up. And there was two co-editors at the time, Richard Meaden and John Barker, and they drive brilliantly. And they did a lot of lap time stuff. And I became the guy. V-boxes was sort of pretty new thing.
Okay.
So I became the guy who became au fait with all the V-box stuff, which means I had to set it up for each car, but also I would sit in the car. So we did all our lap times with two people in the car. And so I just sat there and soaked it up and watched them drive, realized what cars were capable of, saw how they were very close in lap times, those two, to the point where you could interchange them and it didn't really make a difference to the road test. But they were pretty different in styles. So I got to see how you can go quick, what works for him, and I got that little impression. And then when we were just on a shoot at a track, it was great because they would be busying themselves doing the photography, all that sort of stuff. And then once they were happy, they'd got the lap times or whatever, they would say to me, well, you just go over there and play and practice. And so that's what I did. So I'd go and practice, I'd go and spin, I'd go and, disappear off onto the grass and do all that stuff. But I got to just constantly be driving cars sort of on the limit or as close to the limit as I could make it. And I just built up my confidence and ability, I guess, over a period of time. So yeah, it was like this magic period in my life when I was young, didn't have any real responsibilities. I was working at this mag that I totally adored when I was like just a punter, just someone who consumed all the mags, with two guys or several guys, but those two guys particularly who I admired. And I sort of had free reign to drive these cars. And also it was just this great period of cars as well, like early 2000s. There was cool stuff coming out. And I got to do it all. And then I just stayed, because why wouldn't you stay? Like,
absolutely,
it was the thing to do. So that's how it all started for me, and it carried on that way. I stayed there for 7 years as a staffer, basically, and I went from the junior of the juniors to deputy editor. And then Harry was the editor at the time. By then, a lot had changed. Dennis Publishing come in. Our original publisher had left, who was a really great guy as well, and really protected what EVO was all about. And it just didn't feel quite the same. And I also felt like Harry was boss man still, and obviously a big shareholder in the company. And if he was editor, like, I was never going to be editor, and they'd say to me that I was going to be, but I'm not stupid. I was like, this is not going to happen.
Right.
There's nowhere else for Harry to go, and there's nowhere else for me to go, effectively. And then I left from there, but then I've always had a sort of association with the mag, and as a freelancer, I still contribute whenever I can, and it's, do you know what? It's so refreshing just to go, especially if we're not doing video stuff,
So is EVO like your home base? Like, you feel like anytime you write for EVO or do any type of video or anything for EVO, do you almost feel like you're coming home at that point? Like, okay, I need to reset.
It is, and what I love about it, because I've gone away and done so much other stuff, and because I really enjoyed doing the Motor Trend stuff. I'm really enjoying doing the Top Gear stuff, and it's great, but it is a slightly different world.
Sure.
And particularly with the Top Gear stuff, obviously it's much broader. Like Evo is laser focused on what it's all about.
Right.
And it's the stuff I love. So it is like coming home, but it's better than it was almost. Not when I started, but as you go on, you know what it's like. Whatever job you do,
you take it. Yeah.
You get pissed off with certain things, and there's little bits and bobs that are just annoying to you, and you want more control. And so sometimes those little things become bigger than the good stuff.
Right.
But now that I go back as a freelancer, I get to appreciate it because I've done all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Go back to do just like, okay, go on a shoot, drive a real kick-ass car for a day or two, and then sit down and spend as long as you want writing 3,000 words, describing it and talking about it. It's like a decompression chamber for me. It's just, I love it. It's easy. I can sit there and you can get across. I enjoy video. I love doing the video stuff. But you can get across so much in a story that if you, and I'm sure if you said it out loud, some of the stuff you're writing about in a video, you'd sound like a right dick. You'd sound so.
Oh, you talk. Well, I mean, listen, as we both know, it's like, but I mean, I remember, like when I first started, you find your voice, and a lot of times you don't know what your voice is in the beginning. Right. You pick every single verb and adjective out of the dictionary, and and you're like, I need a synonym for this. And you try to find what you think your audience likes. And then you slowly realize they're like, well, they just kind of like what you're saying. And so you develop that over time. But I mean, the fact that you were able to go into EVO, that they gave you apprenticeship, ultimately, so, I mean, yes, you came out of university, doing English and writing and everything. But then they said, okay, we're going to teach you to drive. We're going to do this. We're going to send you that is literally unheard of in 2021. That will not happen ever again.
And I saw that things were changing pretty quick anyway. Like I'd go on a launch towards the end of my time at EVO. And I wasn't ever fully on the launch circuit. Like some people just go to every launch under the sun. But I do at least one a month. So I was on that little round, and I'd see stuff. And I'd see guys come in, pretty young guys, and they could be really good for all I know, and for all anyone knows. But they've not driven anything. They've not driven. No. They haven't driven the rival cars. They don't really have any reference point for what they're talking about. And I remember just thinking, God, not only is it not a great thing for the readers of whatever publication it might be, it's not a great thing for them either, because they might think it's cool to go on a launch of a, whatever it is, you name it, Porsche Cayman or something. But if they're not able to actually reference it properly, it's not going to give them any longevity themselves. It's not going to get them to build a following, because it just doesn't work. And so I knew I was lucky at the time, but as time went on, I knew I was luckier still. And it was, I don't know, it just seemed like it's a slightly different world. And you guys still have it actually in the US, because you've got everything's at your doorstep. Like you've got this incredible country with all this incredible terrain and all these different places that you can go. Petrol's cheap, or gas is cheap. So you can do it more in the US. But back then, like now, the idea of a car magazine, especially one in the UK where the numbers are not great for magazine way, so the business model is not as good as it used to be. The idea of taking 5 rival sports cars or supercars or super saloons and driving them from the UK to Italy, spending 4 days hooning around in Italy, getting amazing photography and driving that is just impossible now. I mean,
no, the budgets aren't there anymore for that.
The budget there's no way you could do it, and it would cost you thousands in fuel costs now over here. So, and that was what we did on a regular basis. Like every month or every other month, it was normally a big European jaunt. And for me, as someone who was just, I travelled as in I'd been on holiday to Spain and I'd been on holiday to Germany, a few places in Europe. But I remember the early day, like the first car of the year I did, I think we did it in Tuscany. because Harry had a big pad down in Tuscany, and we drove like a TVR Tamora, Mitsubishi Evo 7, Aston Martin Vanquish. What else was there? 911. I think it was
just a dream gathering.
46 M3, and we just got in the cars, got on the Channel Tunnel, drove, went to France, and then drove to Italy, and then spent literally 5 or 6 days hooning around Italy. And we met their Lamborghini Murcielago and blah, all these cars. It was just like, holy shit, like, how did I end up in this situation? It was amazing. It was so good. And that's what I've come to. I love the cars, but the spirit of like that freedom that you get, and you get it in Europe, it's amazing. You get it in the US still, just because of the size of the place that you have and the way the landscape changes. But in Europe, you even get that next level, which is you wake up in the UK and then you drive through France and Belgium and Germany and Switzerland. So you actually, not only is the landscape changing, the languages are changing, the rules are changing, the roads are everything's different. And I miss that, and I'm hoping that once all this COVID crap's out of the way, that we find a way to find budget to be able to do that stuff, because it's mega. Like the idea that you can just drive across countries and experience all this stuff is incredible.
I think it's getting harder and harder, and I think it's like road trips. Like I try to do road trips as much as I can. I love it. Like I am the most comfortable behind the wheel of anything going to some place that's 1,000 miles away, right? Like that's just where I always want to be. But I think that we're having a shift in this car culture now where people aren't doing it that much from what I'm seeing, and that greatly concerns me. And the other thing that concerns me is we have all these people out there, we have influencers out there that are, it's not like I think when you and I started where you kind of did an apprenticeship and you made your bones by writing, 4,000 articles and doing this and, having the public just tell you suck and then coming around and be like, no, he's not actually that bad. You know what I mean? And going that way. But what I'm finding is we have these influencers now that are coming in and they're just throwing out these clickbait bomb headlines to get your opinion. And going back to what you said earlier, they're not qualified to say anything about a vehicle because they have literally nothing to compare it to because they've never done anything with a vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, and it's even bigger than that. And let me first say that although I don't have really any interest in influencers and what they do and what they say, and I get frustrated at sometimes the level of like access or whatever that those people get, they've done a really bloody good job at like marketing themselves to the manufacturer.
Oh yeah, sure.
And getting their message and their brand across. And that again sounds like a really stupid or crappy thing to say, but fair play to them. Like the magazines and all the legacy media, they saw this coming. Like we all saw it coming. Like why didn't they go to the manufacturers themselves and say, look, you've got influencers, we just don't call them influencers. And it's
exactly
your customers and all that. The very best thing influencers ever did was come up with that name. Whoever came up with that influencer, because it's like in your head immediately, oh, they're called influencers, they have influence. Doesn't matter if it's proven, it's just part of it now. And so, and it's a positive association. And so, like I say, I am, I guess because I've been in the industry, I know what I like and I know who's qualified to tell me what's good.
Sure.
I have a very narrow band of people that I listen to on this stuff, and they're obviously not on the list. But I just wish that, and maybe you guys are doing it, and I know in America it's happening a lot quicker, that some of the legacy media went out and just showed that they can do the same and produce bigger numbers and better engagement, and also, take away this everything is awesome sort of attitude. And that's my one. It's like, it's the same story 1,000 times. Oh, guys, join me on this. This is amazing. This is nuts. This is the best thing I've ever done. And next week it'll be the best thing I've ever done. And
of course,
it'll be the best thing I've ever done. And it's like, I don't think that's interesting or necessarily sustainable for an audience who really are fully up to speed with what's going on. But so far, no one out there is fully debunking them, you know. And I see it happening. There's different brands doing different things, and I think it's great that in the US you've got the scale to do that, which is why I was really interested with Motor Trend stuff when that came up, and what, you know, whatever that leads on to in the US. But we need to do a better job to head that stuff off, and to make sure there's no point like sitting there going, well, 15 years ago we sold this many magazines and people loved it. Like no one cares anymore. Like get out there and try and do something good that makes a difference and that makes people actually care about it, because people will hoover up really good content as well. They might hoover up crap content, but ultimately if you can produce that level of those numbers, then, or even if you can't quite get those numbers, but the people you're hitting are the right people, you'll still get the access, you'll still get all the things you want to do. So I feel like, although I am genetically and inherently down on the whole influencer movement, because it feels like it's impinged on my life, I actually sort of applaud what they've done, and I think some of the manufacturers have been, like, for the people who aren't good, and there are some of them who aren't good, the manufacturers have been really complicit in what they've managed to elevate themselves to. But some of them are doing a bloody good job, and they're churning out a lot of content, and they work hard. Like, they really do work hard. So fair play to them in one sense. Not my thing, but I'm just, you just can't have the conversation about it. But like, they are what they are, and I agree with you. They don't have the background necessarily to tell me what I care about, and more importantly, I don't think even if they could tell me what I wanted to know, if they had that experience and ability, which they will get to because they're driving more. Are they gonna? Because their entire business model is getting paid by manufacturers. Like, they're not going to tell you.
They're not going to be super on. They're not going to come out and be like, this car sucks. You know what I mean? Because they know they'll be out of a job.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And there's always been a level of that, even with journalists. You know, you see certain freelance journalists who back in the day were on every launch under the sun. And you think, well, your livelihood is actually dependent on being on these launches, of course. And how likely are you to rock the boat by producing a review that is, you know, less than glowing, or that's you'd sometimes read between the lines. Like, you know, I used to see it when I worked at EVO and other places. You'd see stories come in and you'd read between the lines and be like, this sounds like a bit of a shit box, but he just doesn't want to it. And so it's always gone on. But it's, you know, the media landscape's changed. I love that. That's why I'm pleased that I loved EVO, and it was it was hard to leave there back in the day. But it's been great for me to just go and do different stuff, and like I said, Motor Trend stuff, and then ultimately the Top Gear has just been a culmination of me always thinking, well, this is good, but I should probably try something else too. And I sort of look back at it now. I never really consciously took those decisions, but I just try and be in the right place and where I can do what I want to do and do it to a high standard. That's all I care about, and drive cool stuff. So if I can keep doing those things, I think almost, I'm loyal to people when I work for them. But you know, like big organizations are loyal to you right up to the point they're not, and then
exactly. Then they're like, and we'll see you later. Thanks, it's been fun. Goodbye.
About you. And so I always try and work the hardest I can. But if there's an opportunity comes up, you got to take it, because you know, you only get one go at it. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, so cars themselves now, I mean, especially, I mean, you do performance. That's what you do. Sliding, you know, everything else, performance driving and everything. 15 years ago, there was a pretty fine line in what made a great performance, what made a good performance car, what made a great performance car, and what made an outstanding performance car. Right. I feel like over the last 7 to 10 years, 7 years or so, that line has become blurred a little bit, because everything is so good. I mean, 20 years ago, if you said a car did 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, oh my God, are you kidding? That's a rocket ship. Now we've got things that are going 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds
Yeah.
and 2 seconds and things like that. How has it been for you to evolve to say, oh shit, like now I've got these cars that are so close
Yeah.
in performance? Where do you like, are you finding it difficult to really differentiate between performance, or is it getting harder and harder? How do you do that?
Um, I'd say it's changed in the sense that I guess when I started off, when you were really criticizing a car, from what I did, again, because it's like a
Hmm.
super niche, it's super like laser focused on
Yeah.
dynamic. It would be about body control and like steering and balance on the limit and all that stuff. While I still do that now, because the abilities of these cars is so far above what you can use on the road, and honestly, what probably 99% of people could use on the track, you have to think about other stuff as well. Like you have to think about the stuff that's really important at low speed, or
Hmm.
let's take a 911 for example, right? Because
Sure.
it's the benchmark and has always been the
Right.
benchmark, and I'm sure it'll be the benchmark forevermore. So when I started, the reason it was better than everything else was because it was, despite having less power, often it was faster. You know, it had much better body control. The steering was way better.
Yep.
The faster you went in the car, the better it got. It never lost its composure. All those things that make the 911 great, including
Yeah.
the traction and noise and all that stuff. But really, it was because dynamically they were so far ahead of everyone else, that everything else almost seemed like a joke.
Yeah.
Now, the Porsche still has all of that stuff, but it's been elevated to a huge degree. And also because it's got bigger and heavier and more
Yeah.
conventional, because like all car manufacturers, Porsche, BMW, M, whoever, they see what people love about their car and they recognize it. But then someone does like a customer survey and says, well, we know you love your 911, but would you like it to be more economical or more comfortable,
Right.
whatever? And of course they say yes, because, you know, but what you realize is the more people say yes to that stuff and the more you change it, the more the core is like buried in a ton of
That's
other
right.
stuff. And that's what I think we are struggling with at the moment, is that the general high performance stuff is all great, but because it's trying to do everything for everyone, it might be that it's lost that core personality
Yeah.
that it had in the day. So the 992 Porsche is fantastic in every measurable way. It's mega and it still
Sure.
does things that other manufacturers probably can't match. However, it does feel big. It does feel
Hmm.
much heavier than the old cars, despite four-wheel steering and all those other things.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same magic when you're doing 2 miles an hour. And that's deliberate because they want it to feel, it seems to me that a lot of these manufacturers want their car to feel like an S-Class when it's driving down a freeway,
Yeah, exactly.
and then a sports car when you're in the canyon roads. Well, you can't actually have them both. You might get a good semblance of both, but every
Yeah.
time you add another layer of refinement, etc., you're going to lose some of that initial spirit, which is why, undoubtedly, and you know it because it's deep in your world, this is why people love resto mod stuff at the
Oh
moment,
God, yeah.
because they don't necessarily want one car that does 5,000 things. They want
Oh
one
no.
car that does one thing that suits
Yeah.
them perfectly. And I think that's where we're at. So you're not criticizing necessarily absolute dynamic ability now, because you have to talk about that, but nearly
Yeah.
all the cars tick that box to various
Sure.
degrees. But the character and the personality, the stuff that I've always cared about anyway, I would say has become more important. And
Yeah.
because they're the only things that do differentiate them now. And I think it's really interesting. And I see certain journos in there, and it's a totally valid way to be. They're absolutely seduced by performance and 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. And oh my God,
Yeah.
I went to Angela's Crest and I went from, you know, wherever to wherever in 6 minutes 12, and that's 5
Yeah.
seconds quicker than I did it in a while. I
Sure.
don't care about that. I love performance. I find it exciting
Sure.
and thrilling, of course,
Yeah.
but I don't care if let's take two cars like my C63, the new, say there's going to be a new one with a 2-litre 4-cylinder and
Sure.
a hybrid system. I don't care if that's faster than this V8 one that they're just about to start making. If the V8 one is way more fun, has more feel, is a bit smaller, a bit lighter, and it makes me feel good all the time, you know? And
Yeah.
so I think everyone has their own little thing. And in America, you guys are very numbers driven. Like historically, you've been very driven by performance and all that stuff. And I think Germany's the same in a different way. Germany's very numbers driven, very, you know, they do their car tests and everything scores out of 100. You know, that's the way they're culturally wired up. And in the UK, I don't think it's ever been like that. I think it's always been more about, we do numbers and all that stuff, but it's always been more about the personality and the car and the fun on our, you know, we do have particularly narrow, crappy little roads, but they're a huge amount of fun when you've got the right car for them. And I guess for me, that's become more important because, like you say, what difference it make if you do 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds or 2.8 seconds or 3.1? Who cares? Like they're all too fast.
Well, and that's, you know, it's interesting. I mean, we have this discussion all the time, and I think that, I mean, and I think, you know, we're very privileged in the fact that we have, not only do we have access to all these cars, but like, you know, I've got a couple of cars in my collection, and each one of them fits a different mold for something that I want to do. None of them are obscenely fast. I'm going to have one that's obscenely fast in about 6 months, but you know, but even that, like when we do the Daytona, that's a 900 horsepower, 200 mile an hour missile, and that's fine. But it's going to be straight terrifying. You know what I mean? It's not going to have traction control. It's going to do a burnout for 1.5 miles, but it's going to be completely, it's going to fill that void of being a hoonigan. It's going to do everything okay, right?
Yeah.
If I want something to be fantastic, I'll jump into 911 and I'll have a blast with that. But I think that concentrating on the numbers part of it, where it's, oh, well, my car did this, and my car's got this much horsepower. What does it feel like if you're going up, you know, Angel's Crest? You know what I mean? What does it feel like on your favorite back road? That's why I feel like cars like Miatas and old Porsche Boxsters and S2000s from the sporting car world are so fabulous because, one, they're not that fast. Two, you can really play. You can hone your skills. You can drive at 8/10 and probably not kill yourselves, or 9/10 and not kill yourselves. They're relatively cheap to get into, right? And the numbers just don't matter. If you're grinning from ear to ear because you slid a Miata around a corner, then more power to you. I mean, you cashed in. You found the formula, right?
Yeah, I agree. And the only thing I'd say is because we're dumb humans, and like, I'll be honest, like if someone gives me a McLaren 765 LT and says rip it up this road or around this track, it's more exciting than a car that goes slow.
Oh, sure.
It is.
Yeah.
You don't get to experience that level of its abilities unless you're on a track and it's not your car, so you don't care if you know
right.
you ultimately are there to do a job. So if you wrap it into a ball, which you try never to do, but if you do, it's not going to personally kill you. But yeah, I love driving those unbelievably quick, unbelievably honed, perfect things.
Yeah.
I step out of them and I'm like, God, I hope no one saw that. Like, if anyone saw or recorded what just happened, I'll be in jail for like a very long time. And
right.
I'm not sure I'd want that in my life on a day-to-day basis. I think I'd find it more frustrating than rewarding. I think that's the truth. And like I say, I think I like a level of performance, but your 996 is getting to that nice sweet spot. Anything over 300 horsepower, round about 1,200 kilos, or what that'd be 2,600, 2,700. You're going to have fun. You're going to have enough performance to make them move around and to feel like you're going pretty quick. But yeah, like I said to you, like, I think this is why I just went to an event in the UK, and like the classic car scene and the 90s and 2000s and 80s stuff, people are just lapping it up because they drive something new, like I don't want to pick on Porsche because it seems unfair, but something like a new M3 or whatever, and it's mega and it goes like unbelievably quick, and all the rest of it. but it's just lacking that something, you know, that drama, that character, the different engine sounds. All the engines now sound the same. They've all got the same turbo delivery.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything is becoming, and I love new cars, and I don't want to slag them all off because there are examples of brilliant ones.
Yeah.
But they are naturally becoming more homogenized as we go along, basically. And I think people are looking for a different flavor. And, you know, you only have to drive around California for a bit and see how many people are doing old 911s or you know, whatever the car happens to be, to know that's what people are craving. And I think manufacturers should wake up to it, and some of them have. You know, Porsche did the 911R, and those sort of cars that are not just about the numbers, and people lapped them up. So more people should do it. You know, there's potential to do it out there.
So let me ask you this: what would you, as an enthusiast, as somebody who writes and talks about cars for a living, what would you like to see a manufacturer do? Like, for that enthusiast that has, you know, may not be able to afford a 911, right? But maybe has Mustang or Camaro money, right?
Yeah.
What would you like to see a manufacturer come out with?
It's so tricky because even when the formula seems right, it's not always that the car's right. You know, it's such a, like, you know, the Supra seemed like it should be bang on the money. Turns out it's pretty good, but it's not inspirational to drive. It drives like a you know, like a slightly better version of a Z4 or something. So it's really difficult. What I would say is that sweet spot where the M3 once was, with like the E46 M3, is still the playground. Like Camaro, Mustang money, but maybe a bit smaller, a bit lighter, more sophisticated in the way they feel and stuff. The problem is, like, you know, M3s are now what, $100,000?
Oh, insane! Oh yeah.
Like, where's this? When I started, the 911 even was down there. The 911 was like £55,000. It probably would have been $65,000, something like that. And they like doubled in money. There's Boxsters and stuff, but even they are going up to 100 grand. It just feels like, I love the fact that in the States you've got Camaros and Mustangs and those sorts of cars at that money, but we need. I wish there was something just smaller and lighter and like a GT86 type car.
Sure.
Again, it never quite was there. It was just like really close to being really perfect, but not quite there.
So the one that I'm excited about is the new Nissan Z car.
Me
because
too.
everything I've heard about that, and they said, you know, we didn't concentrate on raw power. We concentrated on the spirit of driving and everything. I'm very intrigued by that because I really, if they get that car right, meaning they put the performance levels in that car that are fun, meaning you can go out, you can hoon it, you can have fun. I don't give a shit if it does 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. Literally the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
But that you still have your kind of your modern tech with your driving dynamics and enough power to play with, but you have the sound and the raw spirit, and it makes you. I miss giggling in new cars, and I haven't done that. I've gasped because of acceleration, and I've been like, whoa, this, whatever. I've gotten a little crossed up, but like I haven't giggled in a while, and I miss that.
I agree. I'm into that car, and it's funny. It's almost like in retrospect, the 370s ZZ looks better than it did, even because I see them now, and I'm like, God, that's a pretty cool formula. Like that's a cool thing. And I didn't love the 370. I loved the 350 when it was out. It was a great car. I ran a couple of those back in the day for EVO, and I raced a couple of them, and they were such fun. And they had that brawny. They're almost like an English sports car, but built in Japan, so they didn't fall apart all the time. So they were much better. But yeah, I think that 400 looks really fun. So I am excited about that. And they get it. And again, a car that's the opposite of everything I'm saying, but like GTR. Nissan GTR. It feels old school now. Like it's got like this I mean, forget the dash and all the crappy graphics and stuff, but it's got this industrial feel to the motor.
Feels mechanical.
It's so mechanical, and the diffs lock up when you're parking it.
Yeah.
And all that cool stuff. And I'm like, it's so funny that a car that I think genuinely did change the way people develop cars, but is considered the car that made cars digital almost was it feels more analog than any Porsche you can buy right now. Any Ferrari, any McLaren, like it feels like this lump of Victorian engineering with Japanese know-how, and I love that. And if they can get a bit of that character into the 400, but lighter and smaller, and like you say, not as overwhelmingly quick, it could be really good fun. So I am in agreement with you on that one.
I'm hoping. Let me ask you this. So after you did EVO, when did the video stuff start happening for you? And when did you realize, like, holy crap, I've kind of got a knack for this, right? Because
I did a few. I think I've probably done a few at EVO, but it wasn't really a thing back then. And then I left. So me, Richard Meaden, Chris Harris, now at Top Gear and everything else, who you know really well. We started a thing called Drivers Republic, which was going to be like a digital magazine, videos, the whole work. So we started doing quite a lot of video content. And when I look back, it's a joke what we used to film it on and like how we did stuff, and we had no money. And we launched Drivers Republic like literally as the world went into meltdown in 2008.
Right.
As Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, we launched this. So like we could not have timed it worse. And we got involved with this crazy dude. But anyway, it's a whole other story. So I started doing some video then. And I think, I don't know if I thought I had a knack for it, but I thought, well, no one else is that good, you know, because I watched other stuff.
Right.
And I thought, well, this has got to be the way it's going to go. And I very much enjoy, I always used to say, like, I love making videos. I just don't like other people watching them. So, like, I love the process of it.
Yeah, sure.
I love coming up with the idea. I love making a car look dramatic on video and doing all the cool sideways stuff. That's what I get out of bed for, you know. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed the whole new possibilities of like showing the cars off to their full extent. And I thought, yeah, I'll just give it a go. Like it's a cool thing to do. It's particularly when you're a freelancer and you're a bit skint, it's like the more things you can do, the better.
Oh yeah, the more is more. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just went from there. And I was really lucky in that, again, I'm in this area where I do performance stuff, and I'd get sent on a Ferrari launch or, you know, whatever it was. And obviously those videos, people want to see those things. So when I went back to EVO just on a freelance capacity. So I did Drivers Republic, then I went and worked for Car Magazine. I went freelance, but worked for Car for a little bit, which was pretty good fun and really interesting because they're a totally different mindset that's like the oldest monthly car mag in the UK. So really different mindset to EVO. Then EVO asked me to come back on on a deal as a freelancer, and I started doing more video properly. And it was just fun, and it was just a fun thing to do. And we had a guy called Sam Riley who's gone on to do endless editorial, but also manufacturer work. He's like super talented video guy. And so we just had a laugh doing these videos, and we did them for no money, and we had no time. It didn't matter because we had the cars.
Right.
And so that's when I started to do it, and I really enjoyed it. And then, unfortunately, really, EVO sort of gave up on video at that point for some reason. We didn't have the sort of financial, commercial nous that maybe the American players got now, where they're getting everything sponsored, and it sort of it just wiped its face. They would have been happy, but it wasn't really. It was costing money rather than making money, and so they sort of backed away from it a bit. And then what did I do? Then I went to Drive Tribe because I got offered a pretty cool opportunity. And I had this feeling that Drive Tribe would not last or be spectacular in any way.
Right.
But I also thought I'd probably get a year or 18 months with an almost free reign to do whatever
you wanted. Sure.
And I thought it's probably worth the punt to do that.
Okay.
And so I went to Drive Tribe. We did much more video again. And then just as Drive Tribe ended, for me anyway. I think it's still going, but who knows and who cares. When it was just when that thing ended for me, I got the call from Motor Trend, and then it was like, you know, again, a whole new world of opportunity.
Yeah, and that you were doing head to head with Johnny, right? With Lieberman.
It's more about the experience. Yeah, just coming over to the US, spending more time in LA, getting to work with slightly bigger crews. Even Motor Trend at the time was, you know, not huge budgets, but for me, who'd been working, was just like me and a camera guy.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Spending 2 hours trying to put together a video. Suddenly we had, you know, 2 or 3 days, and we had a few camera guys and all that. So
yeah,
it was great. So that was a real eye opener for me. And coming out to California was really fun, and getting to see all the different places we got to see. So that was great. So it's just naturally evolved. Like, I probably enjoy writing more than anything.
Okay.
Just because you can really get into it, and it's easy, and I find it relaxing. Not always. There are days where you can't think of like.
Yeah, I know. You block up.
But generally, I like it, and I like that process. But video is more just fun. And the thing I love about video, and why Top Gear has become really fun, I like the just mucking around in cars stuff. Like, I love sliding cars around. I love just messing around in cars and having fun, and getting across. Like, we live in a time with some pretty mad stuff, like unbelievable performance,
ridiculous stuff,
abilities. And for every car that I think has maybe got too homogenized or too just generic in feel, there's another one that's absolutely dialed in and mega and just like so exciting. And they're sometimes unexpected. I just drove an M5 CS over here. And it's big and it's heavy, and it's like, it's the same as all the other, you know, it's a twin turbo V8, blah, blah, blah. And then I just drove it, and I'm like, holy shit, this thing is so good. Like, it's so good. So there are cars out there that do it, and finding out what those ones are and describing what they're about on video and showing them lit up, like, that's great. So it's been a evolution rather than a conscious decision, I think. And I'm glad I did it, because, you know, video's where it's at. You know, that's the truth. That's where it's at, and that's where it's going to be. And so, if I hadn't done it, where would I be now? Like, I don't know what I'd be doing. You know, I certainly would be even poorer than I am now. So,
do you still pinch yourself, like when you slide behind the seat of these exotics and you're sliding them around on a racetrack? Do you ever sit back and go, I can't believe I get paid to do this?
Yeah, and that is the one thing that's never ever disappeared. Is not like, I've never been one of these people, and I actually find it incredibly annoying when people go on a launch and they're like, I'm so privileged to be here and blah, blah. I'm like, no, this is your job. Like, you're meant to be here. You're here because you provide a service that the manufacturer does. So I've never been like, Mr. God, aren't I privileged? But having said that, when I get to just slide around in a car and drive like my hair's on fire, you know, and do that stuff, I love to do it. Like, I say to them, even on Top Gear, I'm like, listen, I just want like 1 hour on every shoot where I just slide around and have fun. Like, if I do that, I will work from like 3 a.m. till midnight every day, and I won't complain, and I'll love it, and I don't care if it's cold or it's hot or it's miserable.
Right.
Like, I'm up for it, but you have to give me that time, because if I don't have that, I will be miserable, because that's what like, there's nothing more frustrating than having those cars and that opportunity and then it not happening for some reason or another. And one of the things I've always said to everyone when I work with them, everyone has this default, which is, let's get the safety stuff done first.
I know.
Do the good stuff. And I'm like, no, we are not doing safety stuff. We'll do if we have time, we'll do safety stuff at the end. If we do safety stuff first, we'll do 9 hours of 30 tracking shots,
beauty shots, and
nothing good. And I'm like, if you make the real cool stuff, the safety stuff, then you're going to get a cool video. And it's I've always said that. I'm like, no one, like, whenever they're doing beauty shots, you know, a slider shot of a wheel or I'm like, no one cares about this. You're going to show this for probably 3 seconds in total. Like, let's just get on and do the fun stuff. Like, let's show what these cars are all about. And yeah, that's my thing. I enjoy it as much or more now than I ever did. I genuinely, and it's weird. I don't know what it is in my brain, but I just love.
How do you not? I mean, it's the best thing.
It's just so much fun.
Oh, well, people, I mean, we have dream jobs.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you talk about, I remember years ago, I was at, we were at Willow Springs, and we had, at this time, I think the 911 GTS had just come out, and we were down there and we were doing testing and stuff. And I remember my dad called me, and I don't know why. I don't know. I was like hungover. I was tired. I didn't want to be there. It was 100+ degrees. And my dad called. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I was just like, I'm at this racetrack and I'm tired. I just want to go home. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm testing these 911s." He goes, "Excuse me?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Don't you ever complain to me again." He goes, "You are doing something that the rest of the driving public on the planet Earth would kill to do, and you're bitching about it."
Yeah,
and you go, yeah, all right, Dad, you're right. You know what I mean? And
you're right. It's like any job. There are days where you get things where stuff, and to me, it's never the driving. Like, the driving is the bit I love.
Driving's always good, right?
Always. It's just, there'll be something goes wrong, or there'll be a creative decision that you hate, or you'll have to argue about something that you don't want to argue.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to say something. You're like, I'm not saying that. It's fucking ridiculous.
It's crap.
I'm not going to say it. So you end up with these like little frustrations here and there. But if I'm driving the car, I'm a happy boy. And it's really funny because doing Top Gear, Dax is exactly the same in that regard. And it's really funny. And Rob to a certain extent too. But like, there'll be moments like if something's taking forever or whatever, and we're like, oh my God, this is almost intolerable. This is insane.
Yeah.
How much joy is being sucked out of this experience. And it's not every day, but like any job, there are occasions.
Oh, sure.
Nothing's going right, and you're just sat thinking, when is this going to start like kicking in? And then we'll have like 10 minutes doing something cool in the car, and it's like everything's forgiven. It's great.
Right.
We'll have the great time. The Dax will be radio. You're like, oh my God, this is the best thing.
Right.
I guess it cuts across everyone, whatever you're into, whether, Dax is into stuff probably a bit more like you, the Detroit stuff that I don't know as much about. But if you love cars and you get the chance to do this stuff, it doesn't matter what you're into. Oh. Everyone's speaking the same language, it's so cool.
Oh, yeah. Well, dude, when you come over next time, I got to get you behind the wheel of some old American Iron just for shits and giggles.
I want to. And again, I've enjoyed with Top Gear. Like, we've done a lot of good stuff, and we've done a lot of crappy cars. Like, that's like, you get to do a lot of crappy cars. But as long as you're in the right environment to like enjoy them, and if you go in thinking, well, I know it's not going to be a GT3, that's the whole point. You can have so much fun in it, and that's been really fun for me to discover.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd love to come and have a go at some of your crazy.
Yeah, dude, we need to make that. I remember years ago when Drive was a thing, we had gone down, I think we were at Chuck Wall or something like that, and I had my 68 Charger down there, and Chris Harris drove it, and he was drifting my Charger, and he's like, I never in a million years thought I'd be drifting a 68 Charger around the racetrack. And it's like, whereas if I were to get in like a Pagani, I'd be like, I did never in a million years that I ever thought I'd be in a Pagani. The experiences are so different. But like, all I know is I just want to drive and experience as many things as I can before I kick the bucket. Me
too. Same, exactly the same. And I know ultimately what I'll always come back to. I know what cars I really, really love, but just to drive anything is great. Like, I drove, we did an episode in the snow, and I drove one of those piste bashers, like the big snowcat things.
Oh yeah.
I was like, this is great. I want to drive. I've always wanted to drive one of these. And every time I'm at an airport and you see those crazy looking low trucks that tow airplanes around, I'm always like, I want to slide one of those around on a frozen lake.
It's amazing.
It's really great. So yeah, I'm exactly the same. Anything that I can get in and drive and enjoy properly, I think is where it works for me. And like I say, that I think the funnest thing about Top Gear that I've enjoyed is like driving all these weird and wonderful things. And and just driving a lot of crappy stuff, but in really cool ways, really cool environments. In the next season, we do like a junkyard race, and we've got literally $500 cars, and we're driving them around a junkyard. It was so much fun. Like, I'm crashing into Max, I push him into a pile of other cars, then he comes and crashes after me, and then there's one point where I'm like, he's going to come and get me, because I didn't know where he was. So I'm hiding in amongst some other cars.
Right.
And he's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm just hiding until you come round." He's like, "I'm hiding on the other side of the course." But yeah, just to drive all that weird and wacky stuff is fun. But I've been surprised how much I've enjoyed some of the American stuff, even like stuff that I know dynamically is pretty ropey, like Hellcat Red Eyes, stuff like that. But to drive like a proper old school muscle car would be, something I've not really done. I had a quick go in Alana's car, but only in a straight line, in her Challenger. But only
okay.
Yeah, so that thing was cool.
Well, dude, I got a garage of stuff that is, you have the keys to everything. You know, anytime you come back to the, California, just let me know.
I'll be back.
But an hour has blazed by, which is crazy. But dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. This is great.
It's been really fun. Nice to chat to you. And I'm going to take you up on your offer. I will be back.
Good. Well, listen, all the best. Congratulations with Top Gear. It's fantastic. For those who haven't seen it, go to Motor Trend On Demand and watch it, because a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of fun has been put into this thing. So people should watch it.
That's the key. Just take it as fun and light entertainment with some cool cars in it, including Mike's very own Trans Am.
Yeah, the slowest 6.6 liter on the planet. Yeah. All right, buddy. Listen, we will talk to you very, very soon. Jethro, thanks again, buddy.
No problem, mate. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.